And we're live. Thank you for joining us in this panel focusing on cloud TV for pay TV D2C strategies. We have representatives from Europe's two biggest telcos with us and a major service provider in that area. I'd like to welcome Pedro Bandera, Vice President of Product and New Business from Deutsche Telekom. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you for joining us. I'd also like to welcome Klaus Heimansfeld, Value Creator, Video Center of Excellence from Vodafone Group. Welcome, Klaus.
Yes, thank you very much, Jörn. Excited to be here.
And thank you. And I'd also like to welcome Thomas Christensen, CTO of 24i, formerly at Nordia, which we are still familiar with, a major name and now a different name. So there's been something going on in the background. Thomas, can you explain the details to us?
I can. First of all, thank you for bringing me on this panel. It's a pleasure to be part of this. Yeah, it's been a busy week. We announced this Thursday last week that Nordia was becoming part of 24i, and in essence becoming part of the pay TV operator part of the 24i business. So 24i is already known in the OTT and streaming part of the market, and have been providing smart apps across all different devices, as well as the smart video part, which is involving transcoding, origin server. So already establishing themselves as an end-to-end provider. Both of us have been looking towards establishing ourselves in the cloud. And in our case, mostly oriented towards operators. So with this shared vision, it sort of made sense for us to collaborate, and that became far closer than collaboration. So we're now very happy to be part of 24i.
Where's 24i based, and what's the parent company?
So 24i is based out of Amsterdam. But the parent company, Amino Technologies, is based in Cambridge. There you go. And of course, okay. I mean, Amino is fairly well known in the pay TV operator market for their hardware and surrounding services as well.
Well-known names, just like Deutsche Telekom and Vodafone, of course. So we don't need to explain these companies to you. But I have a first question for you. First Pedro and then Klaus. The main question really of this panel: how do you use the cloud for pay TV services to consumers currently, Pedro?
So first of all, for context, we are a European operator, so we have operations in multiple countries in Europe. So it becomes very obvious the opportunity for consolidation of a common TV platform that can serve multiple countries. The second opportunity is also consolidation in terms of the product itself. So why should we have different products in different countries when actually the consumer needs are basically the same? So that's the path that we have been following. So consolidation on product, and because of this consolidation on product, also consolidation of a TV platform in the cloud that serves multiple countries at scale, but also enables us to be much faster to innovate and also to correct problems because of the cloud approach. So for us, cloud is fundamentally something that we started in early 2019, and I cannot separate the future of TV in the group from the fact that we'll be continuing to use the cloud.
Interesting to hear that. How has this journey been like for Vodafone, Klaus?
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Thank you, Pedro. Yeah, you don't really left a lot for me to explain.
I thought so.
We're kind of in the same situation, except maybe there's a little bit where I can give you a little bit more from my background, because I've been heading the engineering in Germany lately, and only went to the Vodafone Group in the last couple of months to join our effort to build that kind of scalable global platform. So because in Germany, we still have quite a legacy, and we have, of course, a cable network operation. You inherently always have something that is local. You know, I can't put my cable network into the cloud. I really would like to, but we're not that far yet. So for us in Germany, it was kind of experimenting over the last 4 years, really starting with our own on-prem cloud, and then going as well, shifting the Giga TV service to the public cloud. And that was really customer driven by really leveraging the cloud and scalability to really get scalable and reliable service. And that was, I think, the biggest gain that we had over the last 4 years, that we now can much better handle all the load peaks that we're seeing, and we can react much faster.
A lot of benefits included here. The keywords I heard most were scalability and consolidation, and of course speed to introduce new services and monitor them, obviously, and that on a European level. Thomas, you are the man in the middle, so to say, offering these kind of services to platform operators. Can you tell us something about the type of services you have on offer?
Yeah, yes, I can. Actually, I want to start with the journey part. Because, of course, making the leap towards an all-cloud service might be a little bit too much for some, a little bit risky. That we have different forces in play, GDPR, we have the size and the volume of the data plane. Is it even feasible to move everything to the cloud? Obviously, some part of it, like the on-demand, can be easily structured, whereas live TV sounds costly. So there's different elements in that journey that our customers are considering. So we came up with what we call a hybrid approach. We're probably not the only one in the world who's had these thoughts, where we're moving some of the more neutral services more and more to an all-cloud setup. For instance, like metadata searching and capturing of usage statistics, the analytics part. Obviously, it leaves room for recommendation to also take place there, and content discovery and surfacing. That's very neutral and doesn't, collide with the rules of GDPR. And then, of course, leaving parts of the integration with the data plane on premises still. So that's kind of the conundrum here. But the services that we are offering are the usual packaging and content management, as well as subscriber management. It's very easy fit to have that kind of control plane lying around in the cloud, just like DRM and CAS.
Now, we've been talking a lot about the benefits already that cloud-based solutions offer. What about your experiences? You've been running these kind of systems for a couple of years now, addressing Klaus and Pedro, and the challenges you had when implementing cloud-based solutions. Pedro, what's your experience there, and can you tell us something about the challenges?
So maybe picking up on what Thomas was describing, just for clarity, I think we first need to look at the data plane and the transactional part. That's what we have done already. So that's the first part of the journey. There is the second part, so the streaming part. When we are talking about the streaming part, both linear or non-linear, I would also split the problem into two. So the actual streaming of the video and the control. The control in terms of session setup and session management. We will take it in two additional steps. So we'll first consolidate on the streaming part the control plane, and we'll only move for the last phase later on with regards to consolidation of the streaming. Because as you know, the consolidation of the streaming will always be hybrid. It will never be cloud only. So that going back to the first part, so the one that we have done, because we have not yet done the latter two. The challenge has been very much working with the things that are specific to the cloud. So especially when you're talking about operations, so everyone in the telecommunications side, they are used to running local operations. Now, when you move to a cloud, especially a multi-tenant cloud, then operations changes and ways of work need also to change, and that has impact in the teams, and there are adjustments that need to be done on the teams. That was number one. The second one, actually, it's also very much about the segregation that a cloud delivers. So one thing is to say that you have one single multi-tenant cloud platform. Another one is to say what does that actually mean? What are the levels of segregation that you have between the different countries, and what is common? And that has been one of the challenges. So the consolidation of what is common versus what is country specific. So I would say that those are the two most important things. So the ways of working and the actual shaping of your implementation in the company.
Okay, interesting look into the well, almost the machine room, but also the technical and strategic elements involved in cloud-based implementation of services. Klaus, how has this been, or has this been mirroring really the Vodafone experience, to put it this way?
Yeah, pretty much. Let me extend it a little bit. So the way of working, it's not only the way of working, it's really the skill profile of the people. So you really have to transform the people, and you have to transform the way of thinking, and you have to basically revisit all your operational models, because things that are difficult before are now really easy, and you can do them in a second. So I can, if I need to make a change in some of the services, it takes personally me, I can go to the cloud, I'll change the Lambda function, and I'll done in a second. But can you maintain that? I mean, can you manage that over a long time? Can you operate that? So that's one of the aspects that you need to capture. From my experience, my biggest challenge was actually the organizational side. We started at the time where cloud was still, at least not for the technical guys, but for the rest of the organization, it was like mystical something, and suddenly there's somebody coming saying, yeah, I'm saving you that much capex, but I spent that much opex, and they say, oh, no way, you're a shareholder company, opex is the worst thing that you can do. So you really have, on the financial side, you have lots of topics to resolve, and there is no counterpart that has experience with that. So the whole organization has to go through a learning exercise, but it's really interesting. And I think organizations can really grow with that. So, for example, in Germany, we've been really, really lucky that we have a very active IT department, and they took a lot of the effort from us. We anyway run, like, I think currently in the public cloud, something like 300-400 accounts. Okay, and then in those there are there's one production account for GigaTV, and there's one staging account. But just give you one example, one of the issues we're having at the moment is, of course, we want to save money, so we use the scale. We're having contracts with public cloud providers. We reserve capacity. Now, we don't do that on every service level, but we do that as a complete Vodafone Germany. Now, we're saving millions with that, and it really bring costs down. It kind of halves our cloud costs. But now the problem is it's centrally controlled. How do we actually distribute it to the budgets of each of the service? So it's trivial, but it's not really simple. So when we started, the IT guys, they just got a reservation of some compute capacity, and in the end, they found out that the TV service was actually using everything because it was the one with the highest load.
It's interesting to see these things happening during the work in progress. And generally, I think it's not just an implementation, what I hear from Klaus and Pedro, it's more a transformation, really. It's a transformation of the company and their services. Tom, yeah,
sorry, the technical part actually was, for me, the simpler part. So one of the things you have to consider is, I mean, naturally, you first start with a shift approach. So you take whatever you have maybe in your on-prem, you shift it to the cloud. But the real benefit comes when you really convert into basically cloud-native services. And I'm not saying microservices, because they can be cloud-native or not. But really, when you leverage the cloud infrastructure, then is where you get the biggest benefits.
Thomas, is that an experience that your clients have made too? That it's really not just implementing something, it's more of a general change, even organizational aspects included, like a transformation?
I really like what you're pointing out there, Klaus, as well, on the cost effectiveness. I think that's something that is dawning on people. That's actually where you can control costs. Previously, when you deployed a solution on-prem, and you would like to make a change, the calculator comes out, and you can see this is going to be costly and it's going to take time and so forth. all of a sudden that elastic is there. And I like, and it's also something that we're very focused on with the cloud native optimization. Because you can run pretty much all the solutions that are out there in the cloud, but are they effective? All of a sudden, that's something you can do using a spreadsheet, where you can sit there and calculate, okay, we're using this much resources at this point in time. You can pre-book, pre-reserve resources, and then you can adjust the cost accordingly. So that's kind of, again, something that our customers are going through. One of the many benefits of putting customers into a multi-tenancy setup is, of course, that it becomes, by definition, almost cost-effective. The other part about time to market, making easier changes, it's not just the initial launch. I know that we, on our Stratos initiative that we're running with EKT and Verimatrix, we are, and Broadpeak, by the way, just added a few weeks ago, we have claimed 6 weeks to your live. But of course, it's not just the initial launch, it's also the incremental changes you want to do, because you want to create a dynamic infrastructure where you can actually influence it and react to the market a little bit quicker. And you don't have to go through a long process internally. It's a little bit easier to adjust.
Yeah, implementing new services faster or new features faster is one of the key benefits, and it's good to highlight that. I'd now like to come to the content side of the issue. We've been talking a lot about the technology and the challenges and things that go with it, but what about the content side? That what ends up in actually the consumers, on the consumer screens, in the consumers' households. Pedro, Telecom being involved in the in the TV side of the business as a platform operator, what kind of new services are enabled through a cloud-based infrastructure?
So first of all, just for clarity, there is nothing that you can do in the cloud that you will not be able to do it also on premises. The cloud only makes it easier, like Thomas and Klaus were mentioning, to actually do it faster and at scale for multiple markets. Let me give you one example. If I'm integrating with OTT content providers, and I'll not mention names, it's better to do it once, to do it faster, and to be able to adapt to their life cycles in terms of how they change their services, instead of doing it 10 or 11 times across the footprint. That's extremely important for us as telecommunications operators, right? Because we need to be very, very fast on the TV side to incorporate new services and new capabilities, and some of them are coming from the integration with these new breed of content providers that are out there. There is a second part to it also. If you think about innovation on the TV space, it's becoming faster and faster. And that innovation will be more and more, at least for big companies, this doesn't apply for smaller telecommunications operators, but for bigger companies, it will be more and more driven internally than externally. Just because you need to be fast, you need to be able to control things like, for instance, a new way of doing recommendations or integrating your own voice solution. You want to have control. You want to be on the driver's seat. And you can do that using, like Klaus was also mentioning, some of the services that are already available from the cloud. Let's not look at the cloud just because of the infrastructure part. That's just actually a very small piece. It's also all of the service layer that already exists that we can take advantage to build faster and in a more stable and mature way this type of services for the future. So it will help us, or is helping us already, in terms of differentiation by being fast, by creating things and putting them also fast in front of the customers, by learning on how the customer is interacting with those services and capabilities, changing it, shaping it, so that we can have in front of the customer the product that he wants.
So it's making your life easier, basically. And Klaus, what about Vodafone and the involvement of the content side in this aspect?
Yeah, I think the biggest advantage that I see is really that cloud gives us the capability to do innovations faster. Not because we can do the innovations better. I mean, the problem with innovations is always that your product management has a lot of great ideas, and then you have to bring it down to budgets and to resources. And just if I want to try something new on an on-prem environment, to find the capacity, to find the hardware, to bring it in, to install it, to get operations up to speed, that's just such a massive effort that you typically will only do that if you have really a big business proposition. You don't do that for experimentation, and now we really flexible. So we haven't done that too much on the customer side, but we do that internally for service tooling and stuff like that. So now for me, it's really simple. It's a couple of months effort to really build a new service tool to aggregate data from our network, and it becomes really simple with very little effort that we and resources we need to put in. So this really helps us to accelerate in that sense. On the other hand, again, coming back to the operational part, that also has a lot of challenges, because now everything that was previously controlled in terms of budgets and spending is now becoming a little bit free-floating. My engineers can go on the cloud platform and can do a couple of clicks and create a lot of cost if they're not careful. And this is also a very important change. We have to trust the people, because a lot of things like security, Thomas mentioned GDPR, they now need to become inherent in all the teamwork. Okay, so there's not a security department taking care of that. It's actually the team doing the implementation, or the suppliers doing the implementation.
Yeah, we'll be addressing the risks in a moment, so it's good that you mentioned them. Thomas, I'd like to ask you first, however, about the reactions or the feedback you have from your clients when starting to use the cloud. Is it really that they're fascinated about the new content world that's open to them, or is it more the technical cost savings that is in the center of the attention?
I think there's a few things that I want to highlight there. One of them is that they see the benefit in the shared roadmap. I know we briefly talked, both Pedro and Klaus, about the innovation side of this. But there's also a set of features that just needs to be there, right? Like replay TV, or a good old traditional TV guide, or a mini guide, some advertisement space, and so forth, right? That's just bare bone essential. So by providing that in a standardized setup that they can quickly skin, they can quickly go to more the innovative part and add on top. I mean, we are very much in favor of co-creation. So we have a few, as we call them, hero customers who are influencing our roadmap for the cloud setup, and that allows them to be a little bit more creative. We did a hackathon in the office a few weeks ago, where one of the developers did another stab at recommendations just based on ratings from pulling services off the internet. So I mean, another way of making sure that innovation stays is being open and utilizing the wealth of services that are offered from other cloud elements of the public cloud. When it comes to the content, being able to offer more with a click of a button is, of course, also something that has attracted our customers. The idea of doing cross content searches is interesting. We refer to it in our shop as unified search, but it's basically because there's now so many different sources. We used to have like one TV guide provider and a couple of on-demand providers that we would ingest, but now there's plenty out there, and there's more coming. And I saw, was it last week, a new giant forming somewhere? I'm not referring to 24i.
Another one.
Exactly, another one. No, I think that's interesting to see that from the responses I got from all of you, it's not just the cloud is not just making the lives easier of the operators, but also of the viewers, when it's easier for them to do content search cost-based over different platforms, and you don't need to open each single app to look for the actor or film or series that you're trying to find. So this is definitely making the lives easier of the viewers. Yes.
There's also an interest from some of the big tech players to make it a little bit easier with deep integration, deep linking into their content, cross search from other apps. Right? I think that openness is essential for this to be successful.
I think that's a journey we're on anyway, to open yourself up for deep integration. That's kind of the next chapter really in this, going away from the app gallery where you have a dozen or more apps that you need to click on to enter an app world. Yeah. Each app world is different and you don't know how to navigate there, and you don't know where the search button is and the color and these things. We all know that. And to have like a hybrid or an aggregator kind of platform is probably what's most convenient for most viewers. And that's of course where the cloud comes back in. I'd like to now look at the risks that Klaus mentioned, because obviously not everything is just easy and smooth, and there are things to keep in mind. GDPR rules we've already mentioned. That's the data protection legislation in Europe that we need to, of course, consider all the time. And then I'd like to point out, when you're using cloud-based services, not everybody lives in a big city with fiber optic broadband connections. There's still lots of households in rural areas that don't have reliable fast internet, maybe no internet at all, or just on mobile networks. And then of course, when you outsource things to third-party players, there is the dependency on external company services, and even dependency on external clouds that are somewhere across Europe. You don't know where, maybe even in the US, which opens up new regulation problems. And there's of course a loss of control when you hand over certain parts of your business to another company. Now, Pedro, how do you see all of these things that I just mentioned?
So first of all, regarding the access in terms of areas that have lower bandwidth for broadband, what we are doing here is, as much as possible, we are delivering the full service over IP. But of course, our service can also run in a hybrid way. So in areas in which actually coverage is not what we would like it to be, the transactional part that, as you know, does not require a lot of bandwidth. It's still over IP, still to the cloud, but the actual content delivery does not need to be. So we can take advantage of DVB terrestrial if it is available, DVB satellite if it is available, DVB cable if it is available. It doesn't change anything that you are doing on the service side, because services are still hosted on the cloud, and your service layer is still 100% over IP. It's the same. We are just talking about the actual content delivery. Regarding privacy, so privacy is one of our big concerns. It's something that drives us. We want to make sure that our customers feel comfortable with the solution that we have. So everything that we do is either hosted in our own data centers or hosted in a public cloud, always inside the EU, and we only use the data fields in terms of information that are strictly necessary to deliver the service to the customer, within the purpose of delivering that service to the customer, not anything above that. Anything above that, in terms of information that we need, in terms of data for business insights, product evolution, and so on, the customer will need to give us a clear consent so that we can take advantage of that information to improve the product. That being said, of course, the cloud infrastructure also optimizes all of our needs in terms of data collection and data management, and how we use also that data to drive real-time changes in the service that we are delivering to the service. Of course, we do it within all the constraints that we have of the general privacy rules within Europe.
Okay. Klaus, how do you handle these risks or concerns that I mentioned earlier on?
Yeah, let me start with the privacy topic, which is really a difficult one. So it's really Vodafone's strategy to make everything that we do as transparent as possible and to utilize as little as what we really need for operating the service. And the same, like if we do targeted advertisement, we'll ask the customer clearly to give his consent so that we use the data and he's the option to use it or not.
Yeah.
Naturally, we're bound by the European law, so data is always kept in Europe. For Germany, we also have the internal guidelines. We keep it actually in Germany, so we only use hosting centers in Germany. Yeah, so I think this is very important for us. Overall, I think is that because it's we're doing the stuff in the public cloud, we are taking more attention, we're more aware of what's happening instead of we're doing that on our own systems. Okay, so because typically you have the approach, okay, your own systems are secure, you have parameter security and stuff like that. Even we're not having that thinking inside, so but you could think of that. And so the public cloud really requires you to think about very intentionally, and the same for security. And I don't really have numbers in terms of security incidents or anything, but I think because the cloud also provides services that helps you to control privacy and security, security becomes also through the inherent security model with the shared security responsibility of the cloud provider and yourself on the application level becomes even more secure than you probably would have on your on-prem systems. So, for example, we have the accounts we're using are kind of managed by our group cloud security. So we have a large rule set of basically rules that we have to comply and which are actually checked every 4 hours. And if something goes wrong, you get immediately an email and you have to remediate that. So through those controls, you can actually, again, use the scale of the cloud because I don't have to have my own team who takes responsibility for the security stuff, but I have an external team who can actually help me do all the learnings that we have in the organization. Because some of the things I don't even see until it happens. In the organization, I have the chance that it happened somewhere else and it has been fixed, and we check that we don't do the same mistake again. So it's both. It's generally I feel in the cloud I feel more secure than on an on-prem system.
That is interesting.
The other question that I'm always getting is, but you're making yourself dependable on the public cloud provider. Yes, you actually do. But on the other hand, you really have a benefit. So I can tell you, for operating GigaTV in the last 2 years in AWS, I cannot really remember any infrastructure incident. So okay, what we regularly have, like the direct links between the cloud and our on-prem systems, they get into service, or sometimes one of the redundant link fails, but then it gets fixed quite quickly and it doesn't have an impact on my service. So the underlying infrastructure is much more reliable than actually what you can achieve with your on-prem system. Because be fully transparent, I mean, how many people can you afford to work on the infrastructure level? That's really the biggest question. And they're the public cloud providers, and I'm not naming anyone. I think they're all doing a terrific job.
So you have no problem with outsourcing these things to third-party cloud providers. Thomas, that is probably a concern still that some of your customers have when they approach you. Outsourcing elements of your business to third parties could it mean like losing control? What about the security, the risks, dependency on other companies involved in this? Obviously, is it a concern to your clients, and how do you counter these concerns?
So to answer the question simply, yes, it's a concern. I want to take one step back and it just hit me when you were talking about it, Klaus, before, how far we've come, right? To get to a statement where you say, I feel more secure in the cloud. I mean, there's something to it because a couple of years ago, we would have trusted nothing else but the server in our own data room. And now we're running it publicly in the cloud. And there, I think it's to do with, there's more eyeballs on the problem, right? And that means you are quicker, at least, to be notified of breaches. And that also means that you can bank on or stand on the shoulders of what others have achieved in this area. So again, I truly support that statement. We are feeling more secure in the cloud than we did on our own systems on premises, really. But we allow customers to operate in both on-prem and in the cloud, and they can figure out how to relate to each other. That's an important way of getting used to running services in the cloud as well. When it comes to scaling and the outsourcing element, just as an example from the 24i family, they have a Uphone, which is run entirely as an end-to-end service, managed entirely by 24i. I think they're down to a few people on-prem among the staff of Uphone who looks after this. The rest is handled by 24i. So there is some people that are ready to leapfrog into this area as well. A part of the privacy element I also want to address. We see more and more people are willing to give up a little bit more of their data to get an improved service. And it's something that goes back and forth, but we see that people are willingly giving up because there is just a wealth of content out there and it's ever increasing in size. And finding something that is relevant takes time. I think I've used this before. Bruce Springsteen wrote a song called 57 Channels and Nothing's On. And we've moved on and now it's 57 apps and nothing's on because you can't really figure it out. But helping people in this place, they're willing to give up a little bit of data for that.
Thomas, if you allow me, I will even say more than that. They expect us to do that. They see as our responsibility that we use data in a proper way to deliver to them the service that they expect.
Yes.
This is very important for us as operators to understand. It's our responsibility to do that. We should try to make sure that they understand what are the trade-offs, should be very transparent on the information, but we need as operators to use that data to improve the service to the customer.
There's no doubt that the new channels are apps, but we can take it one step further and make sure that the user experience doesn't suffer from it. Because I mean, that discussion of spending 20 minutes, 30 minutes trying to find and locate content, where is it? And then figuring out it's actually in an app you don't have a subscriptions on. That is one of the roles that the super aggregators in the world can play.
Yeah,
so
sorry, the thing that bugs me most always is that I remember a series I was looking and I can't remember in which app it was. And then I start searching. Yeah,
that's how it should not be.
Exactly, yes.
So that is a question for all of you. Is the operator going to be, is every operator going to become a super aggregator sooner or later? Klaus?
Yeah, I think this is the way to go for operators, because to be honest, we understand the value of content, and I think we have to do more to bring more attractive content to our customers, but we will not become a content producer. That's not our DNA.
Yeah, but different with Deutsche Telekom, of course. You are involved in the content side of business as well, but I don't think it changes your role as a prospective super or aggregator, Pedro.
Well, let me put things this way. I'll say something that might sound extreme. I think it's all about survival. If we as telecommunications operators with a TV service, if we don't do this, what is the added value that we are delivering to our customers? What is there to actually differentiate ourselves from a consumer market Android box that can also have the 70 boxes for the customer to consume content directly? So what is our added value. And we see our added value in two areas. So the super aggregator with the integrated discovery and common UI so that you don't need to think where to find your content, but also easiness in the way that you manage your subscriptions, easy subscribe and subscribe, one quick experience, and full trust and comfort with a single bill that is coming from the operator. My personal opinion is that if operators don't do this, they'll have a very, very hard time surviving in the future, because customers will see that they have consumer alternatives that do not need to go with an operator service. They just need to have broadband. They become cord cutters.
Yeah, so turning into a super aggregator could save your life basically as an operator, because it answers the questions: what are you here for? Why do we need you? And then you say, yes, we make your lives easier because you have one UI and we have one platform that offers cross-content, cross-app search, and single billing, for example, just one contact to address your subscription inquiries, and all coming out of one source. I think that is probably key to the future of your businesses. Still, there's one thing I'd like to address in the last 5 minutes that we have, because Pedro already mentioned the Android boxes, that I'd like to take that even further to question, well, with everything being in the cloud, do we still need boxes? You have Pedro, Klaus, with Vodafone and Telecom, still legacy boxes in the market. You're still updating and upgrading these boxes, issuing them to new subscribers. But with everything being in the cloud, it means that you can access the content with any hardware that you like, really, from a smartphone to a USB dongle, TV stick, anything, like even a classic set-top box, of course. But what's the reason for still maintaining the set-top box environment? And will we still have that in 5 or 10 years, Pedro?
So I think the short answer is that in the set-top box, we are the app. And when you compare with other devices like the mobile phone, in which you are just one of the apps. So on the set-top box, you have full control of the experience from beginning to end. So onboarding, the way that you also move to other apps, how do you actually manage that process? If you go to a mobile phone, so the example that you use, I'm just one of the apps that needs to follow rules that are coming from that ecosystem owner, either Google or Apple. Some of them have service/product implications. Some of them even have revenue implications to regards to sell of services. So our perspective is that the set-top box is still here to stay, at least for some time, at least until we have an alternative for an ecosystem in which we could do the same thing that we do today. So protect 100% commercial interactions, number one, be the owner of the overall experience end-to-end, and control other third parties as apps within your main app.
Okay, Klaus, is it the same way of thinking at Vodafone?
Yeah, pretty much. Let me just go quickly back to the unique selling propositions of operators, because I think there's one thing that really plays into that. So I think we as an operator, we're in a position to really make the service, and what we're doing is we're delivering a service to the customer, don't forget that. So what we can do is, with the network and with the knowledge of the network that we have, we can really make sure that the customer gets the best end-to-end experience. And the set-top box as such is one part of that end-to-end chain. Okay, and to be honest, when I look at my tickets, then I actually see in Germany we have quite a lot of tickets because of home networking issues. So that's a problem that we as a service provider have to solve to make the customer happy. And the customer doesn't understand if it's a TV problem or if it's a network problem or if it's wireless LAN problem. He doesn't see that. So that's for me also a very important thing. And the set-top box is something where we control the experience, where we can actually make sure that the set-top box works perfectly with our modems, with our CPEs. So that's an important part of the equation. On the other side, we're experimenting with other approaches. So for example, we launched in December Apple TV, but as a set-top box. So we're renting Apple TVs to our customers, and that has been quite a success And when you look into it, one of the actual reasons for that is, first of all, because people know Apple and has a, of course, and I think also that there are applications on the Apple TV that would be very difficult for us to provide. So I have lots of customers saying, and I'm not sure if I can name the other broadcaster with 3 letters here in Europe, because that app is available. That's why I want to have it.
Okay, so this is still, we need to wrap up. So just quickly, but to summarize that, the set-top box is still important at this stage for several reasons for the telcos. Thomas, what's your view very briefly on the hardware side of things?
So now I mentioned earlier that 24i is owned by Amino, who's obviously a big player in this area. They realized years ago that they needed to be looking at it as software devices rather than hardware set-top boxes. So they are on the path to be what they call software-led in this space. I think it's all about quality. I mean, I run around with TV in my back pocket, and I bring out my phone now and then and cast it to a Samsung TV with AirPlay, and there's a little bit of stuttering. It goes over someone else's network or someone else's Wi-Fi, maybe a competing telco's broadband. And all these different elements needs to be monitored and quality assured. So there is something at play here when it comes to end-to-end delivery of those services, even from the cloud.
Thank you very much. Our time is up for this very interesting discussion, and thanks for your insights and openness about these topics. And I'm sure we'll see each other soon again. Bye-bye for this time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks for now.